Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Beyond the Message podcast. Pastor Mike here. And this week, you might have guessed this one, but we got Pastor Matt, of course.
Yo.
Coming off the message last week.
What's up, y'all?
We got Pastor Ty. What's up, Ty?
Good morning, or afternoon, I should say. Yeah, what's up,
I think
everybody?
it's still morning.
It's still morning.
Well, whoever's listening to the podcast, you don't know. It's definitely still morning with us.
I mean,
but-
You know, Ty, I'm just saying you're staying on trend here with last week, because
I
last
totally
week you
forgot.
were about falling asleep by the time we did this, and already this morning we're off to a rough start.
last week was last
it's
week.
9 a.m. and he's like, good afternoon, or, good evening.
Listen, I'm an old man.
Good
You
afternoon.
go to bed at 7 at night. You go to bed and you wake up early. That's what you do.
Good afternoon, good evening, and good night. Well, anyways, so Pastor Matt, so you obviously brought the message last week. Guys, if you missed last week's message, for numerous reasons, you need to go back and watch last week. And when I say there was so much in this
Yeah,
message,
boy, let's
there
go.
was so much in this message. But
It's a
Matt,
point of contention.
you barely gave us any margin to write anything
Else.
inside on the worship guide, but that's okay. I'm not mad at you. So that being said, you did mention right as we sat down in here and we're getting ready to get rolling, there were some things, and we always kind of ask this, kick this around, but there were some things that you said that you didn't even really get to, that you wanted to unpack, and you're always chasing a clock, up there. So
True.
So maybe kind of walk us through, some of your thought process going into this, because there is a lot you can say on this topic.
Yeah, it's interesting. I will start out by saying the notes was a funny little thing, because my heart behind it, I talked to Tracy about this. My heart behind it was like, man, I just don't want it to stay in the church building. Like, I wanted to bring it out. We all do that.
Right.
And I had so much stuff on the notes that it was almost overwhelming for somebody. There's a couple ladies in our church that struggled with this. It's hilarious. on their social media, they were like, I just overwhelmed and I couldn't pay attention. But then they were like, I had to watch it again on Sunday without taking notes. And I guess the idea is, man, we don't want to just spectate.
Right.
We shouldn't just come in and spectate. And it doesn't matter who's preaching. I love taking notes. I think I even said it on Live in the Lobby, Pastor Mike, when you preached a couple weeks ago, that I had 3 pages of notes. And you're like, well, did you listen? No, I listened, and I really listened, and I wrote it down, and I've looked back at it, and it was just good. I don't know. I really think that there's a certain amount of people, and I don't think it's many, that just listen.
Yep.
And they walk away and they retain. I know some people can do that, but I don't know. I hope that people got something out of it. And, the topic, if you didn't watch, Fishing for People, we were up in the Smokies with Wes, and that was so much fun. And I had my 11-year-old, and dude flat out fished me. Like, it was crazy. Caught 5. Have you ever been trout fishing, Ty?
No.
You've never done it?
No.
Man, you don't look like a fisherman.
I don't. What do I look like then?
You look like a basketball stud.
I wouldn't say that anymore. I got, I don't know, Kenny Jet Smith's knees. I'm 23.
Yeah.
My knees are going downhill, though.
Yeah, but I mean, it was such a cool experience.
Yeah.
You take Micah fishing yet?
Not like that. We've gone a couple times now, like lake fishing, things like that.
It's cool.
Short stints, but he, especially here this last bit that we've tried this with him, I think both he and, honestly, more so his sister, really got hooked into it. She really she was, you like that? Yeah. She was begging. Like, she's like, can we go again? Can we go again? Can we?
So cool.
So I think we're going to be taking them out again soon before they go back to school. But it's funny because he's like, he's okay with it. She loves it.
Do they bait the hook and take the fish off, or is that your stuff?
We're getting there.
Yeah,
we're getting.
I ain't gonna lie. Noah was like,
we're getting there.
I mean, if I have to touch that thing, I can. Like, I'm like, you get in there, but whatever. But no, it was such a cool, just experience with Wes, and the spiritual application was all over. And you mentioned, what are some things that, that I didn't maybe get a chance to say. And, the whole idea of the sermon was fishing for people and being bold in our faith. And I didn't really get to tackle this, but a lot of people say, my faith is private.
Mm-hmm.
I don't, I don't want to force it, and I don't want to force it on anybody. And for us, it's like, okay, I mean, partly I can see that, but we're supposed to show our faith in everything that we do, right? So I really kind of wish I would have had an opportunity to kind of unpack that even a little bit more. And I do think the reason why is, some people are like, well, I don't want to sound stupid. I don't want to feel like I'm an idiot. And this was the scripture that I actually didn't get a chance to. It's 1 Corinthians 1:18. For the message of the cross is foolishness to those who are perishing, but to us who are being saved, it's the power of God. And what does that mean? The first group, the perishing, the cross of Christ is folly. I think the Greek word is moria, which is the same root word for moron. And I thought that was pretty interesting that Paul is essentially saying to the unsaved world, us that preach the gospel, that live our life through Christ, we will look like idiots. Yeah. And they think that we're stupid, and nobody wants to feel that way, but we're just coming at it from a different angle. Right at the end of days, the Bible says God will give them to their depraved mind. They'll look at us that we are
We're
wrong.
the weird ones.
We're the weird ones, but
Yeah.
we can sit back and we're like, wait, what? We have something that would help you. Does it make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and it's kind of funny, but I think even for me growing up in church, and trust me, I was far from perfect, so don't go down that road. But even growing up in church, I heard a pastor say years ago, he says, what makes all the difference when it comes to Christ in your life is when Jesus is no longer a religious figure, but he becomes a historical one. He goes, when you flip that switch in your head that this isn't just a church thing, this isn't just a Christianity thing, but this is a real person
Yeah.
who really walked the face of this earth. And there's so much, which obviously we're not going to get into that today, but there's so much evidence to back up not only his existence, but all the claims of the Bible. I mean, from secular historians on and on and on down the line. There's more written about Christ historically and in proximity to his life than any other figure in history.
Right.
People don't realize that.
Even atheists.
Yeah.
Right.
And he says, and yet when you reach that point where you go, okay, so if this guy really lived and he really did these things, then you have a choice.
Yep.
And it's like, and for me, it was like, that was kind of that aha where it's like, okay, this went from religion and tradition and that to, okay, this is a real relationship.
Right.
But I think that's the difference is, to the outside world, outside of Christianity, they look at us and they're just like, you guys, it's just, it's fairy tales and it's, all this kind of stuff. It's folklore because it's not become real. And there's a lot of reasons for that. One of them is I think that not enough Christians live out their faith publicly.
Yep.
And I think that's part of what hurts that. But yeah, it is interesting how, and you can see it happening quickly in our society, how we are becoming the odd ones because of what we believe, even though there is more support for it than anything else in existence.
Right.
But
you've been in church a long time. I've been in church now a while in working for the church. Now, Ty, for you, I miss, this is a take, I miss the opportunities that I had in the theater to flex my faith
I get that.
and to bring people to Christ. I miss that because I hang around so many church people now that I feel like those times are fewer.
Yeah.
Now for you've been in the church, of course, working for us for a couple of years, but how was it for you balancing, like flexing your faith, like sharing your faith? Did you do it boldly? How was the response? You have a group of guys, I think, in your life now that you're trying to pour into that are not really following Christ, but you're doing. So how's that going for you, I guess?
I love God so much and what he's done, for me, that it's not even about me. I want everybody, like we brought up the verse about everybody going to the lake of fire at the end of the days and all that stuff. I was like, man, like I can't give up on those guys, for example. But it's easy to give up when you beat yourself up. You're like, okay, they're not listening to me.
We have that talk a lot.
Yeah. They're not getting anything out of what I'm saying, but ultimately, like the seed that's planted with that Scott done for you, just being simple in the way, just saying, hey, I know you ain't got a bed. Let me help you out. Stuff like that. I mean, it's a tough road, but when you go to do it, but God can use your gift and whatever it is. Like I loved when you talked about the mower. I don't know what
SB mowing.
I have watched him.
Dude, SB.
SB. Okay.
Dude's a ball. It's awesome. He's a baller. I love
And he's
him.
got some copycats out there now too.
Yeah, there's a bunch, but he's killing it. He's killing it.
Yeah, and just how like he can use that and be like a light for Christ in the way, like, okay, listen, I'm gonna mow your yard for free. I'm gonna help you out. I know you're struggling, you're injured, whatever that way. Like, so what's our platform? We know we all have an influence, but we're going to use it for God. And we got to take a step back. Like, okay, I'm gonna go to work. Let's say you're a teacher in the school system. Like, okay, there's some coworkers that are struggling. I'm like, okay, how can I be a light? I think of my mom. She's in the school system.
Yeah, she's awesome, by the way. Your mom is awesome.
I know she is a light for Christ, and I think of her. I'm like, okay, she's out there, she's being effective, and I see the way that, she doesn't. Sometimes if she doesn't talk to somebody about their faith or whatever it is, the way she's like, all right, I'm gonna give them a gift, and then I'll tell you an example. One time she just kept pouring onto this one lady, like just love. My mom did, like God's love, and like giving her gifts, like being there for her. She's going through a hard time, and one day they just started talking, and then they got just talking about their faith. Just showing up, being consistent like that.
That's right.
And now that lady's plugging into church, and it tickles me to death. So my mom done it the right way, and she was a great example of that. But I get that it can be discouraging, but it is so worth it just to keep going.
Yeah,
it is.
Well, and that goes what you were talking about this weekend, Matt. One of your points was the perseverance angle, and I brought that up on Live in the Lobby because I think that's what trips so many Christians up. Is either you have a very clear opportunity with somebody and they either don't respond the way you want or whatever, or Ty, like what you're describing, where it's that continuous attempt at having influence just as a day-to-day into people's lives. And you feel like, hey, this is not, lending to the results that I was expecting. This is not, seeming to make a difference in this person. But yet, like Matt's story that, his own personal testimony that he shared this week, or so many others, it's one of those things. You are planting seeds. It does take time. It takes the right conditions. And sometimes, unfortunately, it takes the individual you're trying to reach to really hit a very rough place to where they're willing to then reevaluate kind of their outlook on life too. And that's where, I would encourage you and anybody listening that you feel like, hey, you just related to what Ty was saying. Hey, keep going, keep doing what you're doing, because sooner or later, that influence will pay off. Whether you see it directly or not, it will pay off. Yeah. And right now you are that person planting seeds, and you are doing what you're supposed to be doing. And, ultimately, we've talked about this many times in the past, but, we're not all called to be harvesters necessarily, but we are called to plant seeds in our world of influence. And so just, the things that you are doing right now, the influence you have, somebody else may be the one day to see some of those guys really come to life spiritually and really do something amazing. True. Even for God. And, you may or may not see it, but hey, you were part of their story.
Yeah. Lock in and keep plugging in. And I got a text now. I'm not going to say who it's from. This man might actually be listening to the podcast. And this text meant so much to me. In this message, I talked about a story about how I failed presenting the gospel to somebody, or I showed a negative version of the gospel, and we all make mistakes, and man, I learned from that. But it was challenging, and I talked about Scott and how he planted a seed, and Jonathan how he watered it. This man wrote me last night, "Hey brother, I want to thank you for planting the seed in me so many years ago. You were Scott to me back then," which I was like, man, that's awesome. He said, God had us cross paths for a reason. He talked about his faith in the past, but he's like, I have an unbelievable relationship with Jesus today. Everything I do and I have done is because of my faith. Also 3 years sober, and my life is so beautiful. I love you, Pastor Matt. And I think those wins, it's not, hey, Matt, you're amazing. Those wins are for us to look back and go, okay, God, you are working and you are using. That's the same time frame that I look back at that moment with that friend that I presented that Jesus in a way that he was like, man, I've met more honest people in the bar than I have, and you call yourself a Christian. That has stung with me for so many years. And I go back to that, and I do, just so I don't repeat that. But then hearing that text last night in the same time frame, so I wasn't all horrible. Like, God still used me. You know what I mean? So keep it up. But you never know, down the road, those guys are going to come to you, and I think that's the battle. That is the battle. We got to keep fighting.
Well, and I think too, something you said too that maybe kind of glossed over in that, but within the Christian circles, we're really bad. And I was talking to somebody about this the other day, really bad about putting up the facade that, man, we're perfect, got it all together. And it's like, man, it's like some of the greatest moments within the ministry of this church, but just in general, is when you're vulnerable. People praise Pastor Brent for this. You were very vulnerable this week talking about kind of that season in your life before becoming a Christian. And listen, being vulnerable and going, listen, I've made mistakes. I don't have it all together. I have messed up and screwed up more times than you'll ever know. It's like, trust me, I know more than you do. It's like, but yet God can still change somebody's life. God can still work and change my heart. And I'm still not there. I'm still growing. Being vulnerable like that in and of itself is powerful. I think so many times as Christians, we're maybe afraid to be bold because we know in the back of our head, oh man, but they know I did this and they know I said that. And, and we play that game, and I get it. But man, if you allow those excuses to keep you from sharing your faith, it's like you're missing out. Instead, we need to be first to go, I'm not perfect.
Yeah.
It's like, Pastor Brennan said it numerous times, and I think that's why so many people relate, is because you look at me for long enough, he goes, eventually, he goes, I'm going to disappoint you.
Yeah, that's right.
He goes, but I'm going to point you to the one who is perfect.
Yeah, who will never disappoint you.
And I think that's true. And you said, people are more honest in the bar. I think there's a lot of truth in that, that generally, but it's because as Christians, we've bought into the lie, I have to be perfect.
Yeah.
It's like, you don't have to be perfect. You need to be pursuing perfect things, but you're never going to get there this side of eternity.
Yeah, and you're 100% right. I do have a question that I wanted to ask you, and I'm going to start with you, Ty.
Okay.
Young buck, my man. I didn't get a chance to say it every service, and actually last service on Sunday, I finally said it in the prayer. God reminded me, what do we do with those that vote different than us, that live a lifestyle way different than us? How can we be consistent and fish for people like that? Like, what is your advice? And I wish I could have had got practical. And I know it's relational. I know that we got to try to develop a relationship. I know God uses people in different ways. I'm not a guy that's going to stand on the street with a sign and yell in a megaphone, God loves you, but the way you live your life, you're going to hell. That's just not me. But what would you say to the people listening that are like, well, I can't even talk because they voted Democrat or they voted Republican or, they live a different lifestyle. How do we do that?
Man, see them as a person, know that we're all searching, and that you have to love them, ultimately. You may not agree with what they're voting for or how they are living their lifestyle. But if you're showing up and you're just like, okay, I love you. Maybe you hate the sin. If it's a sin that they're falling into, I hate the sin, but you love that person. We're called to love that person. See them as a person. The Bible talks about being quicker to listen than quicker to say something. And that's what we have to do. You just listen to them, and then you pray to God for the words to say back to them, because people, what are we in the world of it's debate? I feel like everything's a debate, screaming back and forth or whatever that is. But why do we have to debate constantly when we're like, okay, I hear you value that. This is what I believe, what God says, but I love you though. But people, we get hung up to where we harden our heart towards that person. And you can't harden your heart towards anyone because everyone's hurting in some way or searching for something. Like I just think of, people that I went to school with, and that, obviously I don't agree with what they're doing or whatever, but I love them. Like I truly do. And how can I be there for them? So just see them as a person and as somebody that just needs somebody to listen to. Be more of a listener to them, and then speak what God tells you.
So Pastor Mike, tagging onto that, you're on the online campus. Our online campus reaches everywhere, including states that probably differ from where we are, right? So do you have anything that you could add to that, or that?
Well, I mean, I think just in general, that is definitely true, but I think in general, it's understand Jesus didn't die just for Christians. He died for everybody. Like Ty, you just alluded to, you see them as a person, but you see them as a person that Christ went to the cross to redeem.
Right.
And obviously, until you have a relationship with him, that doesn't happen. But so if you look at those around you that maybe you are at odds with, maybe you're like, you shake your head and you go, how can you think the way you do? Ultimately, you got to set all of that junk aside and go, you know what? This is somebody who God loves. This is somebody who Christ laid his life down to redeem. And so I'm going to do what I can to make that count for something. I'm going to make that, I want that person to have that relationship with him. And so it is love, but it's not that we have made the word love very shallow in our culture anymore. Right. But it is a genuine love and concern for other people, to where if they know, hey, I'm not doing this for some, tally mark on the board. I'm not doing this for bragging rights. I'm doing this because I genuinely want God's best for your life. Yeah. And if they feel that and they see that in you, even if they know you disagree with whatever they're into, but you go, hey, I still love you despite those things, that is powerful. And that makes a world of difference. And I have seen that firsthand in coworkers, in family, in friends over the years, that it's like they are drastically different mindset, drastically different thought process. But like you said, Matt, and I love the line that you used. I was trying to write it down every service. I'm like, how did he word that? But you said, hey, I'm going to love across that line. Yeah. And I think that is exactly where we have to be.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
So let me ask you this: your closing thought this week, or closing point rather, I should say. I love the leave no trace, the bringing the coin out. That was very powerful. We kind of opened with that, but that is very powerful, because I think that is where the trap too many Christians fall into is, yes, your faith is an individual relationship with God. You can't live your faith out through somebody else, but that doesn't mean that it is private. You still got to go public with your faith. So all that is important, but with that in mind, your last point on the outline, you worded it this way. You said we need to overcome being scared and be bold for Jesus.
Yeah.
So you and I have talked about this a little bit over the years, not just in relationship to the message and everything, but what are some of the things? I know you are, if you go in Matt's office, Matt has a small library. He's a reader.
Hey.
Matt can read, everybody.
I can read.
But so what are maybe some of the resources that you would personally recommend to somebody that goes, okay, it's like I have this desire to do this, but I'm not bold in my faith. How do I get more comfortable? How do I get whatever resources I need to where I feel like I can share my faith and not look stupid?
Well, the first one might surprise you. It's a book called The Bible.
That's a good one.
That's a good one. Just kidding. Just kidding. No, I would honestly say I've been there. Like, I've wanted to, even before like where I'm at now, like there are times when I felt finally had that breakthrough and had my relationship with Christ. And people were like, well, what does that even mean? And I'm like, it's awesome. Like, and you're like, I don't know how to put it to words. And then you say stuff like, it's like, man, I can't even explain it. It's a feeling. And that works too, a little bit. But when I read the Bible, God spoke to me, and and it also gives you examples, and it's kind of like ammunition to when people come to debate or talk to you about it, it's like, well, why would God do this? And it's like, actually, God didn't do that. God's plan was not for that. Like, why would God create a world that, all like kids, get cancer? And like, guess what? God did not create a world with that. God created a world that was beautiful.
We're the ones that messed
and
it
we're
up.
the ones that messed up with free will. So I think the number one thing is when you read the Bible, God will speak to you when you read the Bible. I'm also a big fan of pastors' books. I think because they've experienced things through counseling. One of my favorite authors is Paul David Tripp. If that's someone that wants, I also like some Craig Rochelle books when he talks about, how to overcome like fighting the negative thoughts and like when the enemy battles, like how like part of our issue with sharing our faith is we get scared.
Yeah.
And we don't want to be stupid. But when we're bold in it, that, and it's taking those thoughts captive. So I mean, there's so many books. I would love to just kind of unpack and do book studies. But I think the number one thing that a Christian can do is read the Bible and let God speak to him. The more you understand the Bible, the more you understand God, the more you're able to convey. Look at it this way: is when I met my wife, my first, couple dates with her, I knew a little bit about her. I knew where she lived and I knew, what she, liked. But now that I'm 18 years into my marriage, I know when she laughs this way, it's genuine. When she laughs this way, it's fake.
Yeah.
I know when she looks at me this way, I'm in trouble. And I know when...
You see that one a lot.
Yeah, I see that one a lot. I know when she grabs my hand in a certain way that she's scared.
Yeah.
Or she wants comfort. That the more we read the Bible, and it's not, hey, I read the Bible once, I'm done. The Bible's alive.
Yeah.
And every time you read it, it'll get you, God speaks to you in a different way. And the more you know God, the more he speaks to you, the more that you're going to be able to help people that are broken and that they're lost or hurting.
Yeah. Well, and as you read, you don't have to, especially getting started in this. I mean, we all need to grow in our faith, so we need to challenge ourselves. But if this is something that you're just really going, hey, I'm making this decision, I want to be this person, then as you read, find some scripture and start to memorize. It doesn't have to be long. It doesn't have to be, a full-blown sermon, but just have some simple points where you can explain to somebody overall the gospel, what Christ did for us, whether that's the Roman road or something else, whatever plan you want to use, but have something to where you can turn to it. You can quickly either look it up and read it to somebody, or you can say it from memory. But those things are important, but to have those tools and just have a plan. This weekend, I touted two things after you preached. I said one, which I know you like, the book Tactics by Greg Koukl.
Yeah,
that's Koukl.
Yeah.
You can get that Amazon, wherever. It's a very easy read, which is why I like to recommend it. And he gives a lot of different approaches to sharing your faith, which is really cool. The other one is, again, jump on the church website or the app, search the How to Share Your Faith class.
Yeah.
If this week inspired you, jump on, take that extra step, watch Pastor Brent as he teaches some simple methods to get more comfortable sharing your faith and making a difference in your world of influence.
Holy Habits. Remember that one? You love that one. Noah Herring. You love that one. We did that in the youth.
Yeah, just how to make it habitual every day. It's easy steps, practical steps. I loved it.
Yeah, that was a good one. So
and like you said, the more you're exposed to it, the easier this becomes.
Yeah, exactly right. Exactly right.
Guys, listen, thanks for taking the time to listen in, hang out with us in the little closet here.
Yeah,
and
I love this place.
And again, kudos, Pastor Matt. Great message. I love it. Even though you didn't give me any blank space, I had to have another piece of paper, but that's fine. We'll let it go.
I'm glad you took all the notes. That's amazing.
I tried to fit 3 pages on that half page. It didn't work. But that being said, guys, be in church this week. Pastor Brent will be bringing the message.
Yeah, he's excited.
And it's going to be really good. Just knowing kind of the direction where he's going with
it's
this.
so good this
It's going to be great. And it's funny because, like I said a couple weeks ago, we changed the schedule around quite a bit this summer. But yet God's master plan, because I think, once again, it's going to be perfect with just kind of the way this has unfolded throughout this summer. So be in church this week. Make it a priority. But guys, we love you. Have a great rest of your day, and we will see you this week.
See you later.